So let's take a look at our first example for working with one variable data. Okay, so this example looks at a part-time job survey. So a survey of grade 12 students included a question asking whether or not they had part-time jobs. So immediately, just from reading that first one, we know that this is one variable because they're looking at just one quantity. We have grade 12 students and they're asked whether or not you have a part-time job. Okay, so this, the shows, that doesn't make sense. Okay, so the following chart shows a tally of the results by homeroom, okay, in first period class basically. So these are our homerooms. We've got 12A, 12B, etc. And this is our tally chart. So basically you would take this chart and a student has gone to the grade 12 students and they've asked them, do you have a part-time job? And within each homeroom, they've written down, they took a tick, basically, and put a tick in this chart every single time someone said, yes, I have a part-time job. So our job now is to first identify the variables. Okay, so the variables in this case are, we only have one, and that is the number of students with a part-time job. Okay, so number of students with a part-time job is the only variable. Homeroom really isn't a variable, it's a classification. It's not something that's changing. Okay, so we have a tally. Now what we have to do is just complete this table by putting in the frequency of each of these. And basically what that means is just adding up the total in the tally chart. So that one's got 4, this one's got 6, 2, 8, 7, 6, 3, and 5. Okay, so we're just going to go through and put all our totals in. Why would constructing a bar graph or a dot plot be the most appropriate way to display this data? At some point you're going to have to be able to choose the kind of data that you want to present and how to present it. And the reason in this case that a bar graph or a dot plot might be the most appropriate is because the data is one variable. And if you think about it, if you were to try and present this data in, say, an XY grid with 2 variables, okay, you're going to find that you don't really have anything to put on your x-axis, nothing to go on the horizontal axis. You only have one variable. So very quickly you're going to notice that doing something like a bar graph might make more sense. Okay. Doing something like a pie chart, in this case, doesn't really make a lot of sense either. Since we're going to different grade 12 homerooms, chances are there's not going to be a lot of variance. We're not trying to show that this classroom has so much more than another classroom. So wouldn't completely make sense, although you can justify it and you could do it. But a bar graph is probably the best. Okay? So I have, right here, I have a grid, okay, just for us. I do have a grid. And we are going to, there we go. We are going to construct a bar graph. Okay. And constructing a bar graph isn't too challenging. Okay. I'm going to try and do it relatively quickly. Okay. So always use a ruler. Otherwise, you know, things get a little messy. And always make sure you have, this one's already labeled. This is the frequency. And this is the homeroom. So this is something sometimes you're going to have to do on your own, but I didn't want to spend time in a video doing it. Make sure you have a title. So this is, think of a title of some sort. Students with part-time jobs by homeroom. In this case, we don't really have the name of the school or anything like that, so this will suffice for this one. But if you would like to make it, that wasn't too great. If you would like to make it a little more detailed, a little more specific, so anybody looking at this knows the information that you're presenting for them. Now we just have to plot our values. So if you can go back to your chart and take a look, okay, the first one, 12A, had 4 people with part-time jobs. 12B had 6. Just make sure it's lining up. Okay, go. Relatively, 12C had 2. 12D had 8. 12E had 7. I'll just quickly go through. Just make sure it's neat. Another thing you'll notice as I kind of go through and put my lines on here, okay, is that my bar graph takes up the whole graph. Okay, you never want to draw a nice big grid and have it all nicely laid out and then have all of your bars kind of crammed in a corner. Okay, you want to make it big and you want it to be visually appealing. You want it to look good. A part of being able to do graphs is being able to present information in a way that makes it really clear to others what you're doing and really makes it look good. Because you might end up one day in some sort of business environment where you have to present this information to someone, maybe a superior or your colleagues. Okay? And last bit of touch on any bar graph is just some color. There are pretty simple and easy ways to do bar graphs in Excel on a computer as well, and they make them way neater. Sometimes it takes you a lot less time if you have a lot of information to put in. So at some point we'll be going through how to do that as well. So for the next example, okay, this one's going to look at physical activity. Okay, that's kind of interesting. The table shows the results of a survey of 15 teenagers in which participants indicated their age and number of hours of physical activity per week. So someone wanted to find out, is there a relationship between someone's age and how much they work out, how many hours they work out in a week. So they went out and they collected this information. You'll notice in these examples, information has already been collected. Later on, we're going to talk about how to collect your own data and good ways to go about doing it. But we're always presented with it. Identify the variables. Okay? So in this case, it's already been presented in a table. Okay, so it's pretty easy to see that there are 2 variables. So we've got 2 of them. We've got age in years, and we've got physical activity in number of hours per week. Okay, number of hours per week. So we've got 2 variable data in this case. Explain why a scatter plot would be the most appropriate way to explain this data. Because you've been given 2 variable data, you have 2 sets of ordered pairs. Okay, you have, a set of ordered pairs. So you have some variable, you can have an independent and a dependent variable. So in order to create a scatter plot, the first thing you have to decide is which of your 2 variables is going to be the independent and which of your 2 variables is going to be the dependent, go across the y-axis. What you want to think about is, what does independent mean? Independent means it doesn't depend on anything else. So does physical activity depend on age, or would your age depend on physical activity? And if you think about it, your age really doesn't depend on anything. Your age is going to be your age, not dependent on anything. No matter what, every single day you get a day older. So your age is definitely the independent variable. Okay. Basically, the best way to think about it is, are you trying to find out if age depends on the amount of physical activity you do? Because if I can do more exercise and decrease my age, that would be great. But it probably won't. Okay? We're probably looking at whether or not age influences your amount of physical activity. Once again, I do already have the scale done for this one. And this is relationship between age and physical activity. Got a nice title. Good. So now we just want to scatter plot the data onto here. So my first point is 14 and 3. We've got 16 and 0, 17 and 4. And they're going to start jumping around a little bit because this is just collected data. 15 and 10. Hope you don't mind me saying them out loud. 18 and 1 helps me get my thoughts a little organized. 19 and 6. 19 and 5. 18 and 9. 13 and 10. 15 0. 16 0. 16 14. Wow. It's 2 hours a day. 16 10. 14 7. And 17 0. Okay, so we're going to end up with something that looks like that. It's kind of all over the place. So I'm probably going to go with that there really isn't a whole lot of a relationship between these two. So remember, sometimes you might have two variables and there will be a relationship and sometimes there won't be. From this, it's not looking like it makes much of a curve, a line. Doesn't seem to be any sort of pattern or continuity to it. So in this case, it's looking like there's not much of a relationship between being between the age of 0 and 20 and the amount of exercise you do.